All right, I call the Appropriations Committee meeting to order. Got a pretty full packet of information. Actually, you should have three different packets. You'll see one that's got about 8 or 9 bills on it, another one with 2 bills on it, and then we've got a third bill that just came out of the Education Committee. I'm going to start on the packet with the 2 bills. Senate Bill 2179 is the first one I'll call up. This is a bill that has got some DPS language. This did come through Judd B. I've got a proposed committee substitute in front of you that brings forward just 2 code sections or 2 sections as it relates to the request that DPS had made. One of those is related to a lease that they have had and what they're proposing to have at their new headquarters. I think they have a credit union that leases space from them. And as you'll see on the second page, starting on line 22, that just gives them the authority to sublease that space. Any funds they receive from the sublease will go into the general fund. And then also Section 2 expands the definition of DPS officers that are entitled upon their retirement to get their sidearm. That's an explanation of the committee substitute. Are there questions? The motion is titled sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2487. I'll call on Senator Delano to explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill brings forward the code sections for the Law Enforcement and Firefighters Death Benefit Trust Fund. We're still working this out through the department. We're asking that the committee work with us so we can just keep this bill alive. Mr. Chairman, did you want to add a reverse repealer into this as well? So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to add a reverse repealer at this time, please, as an amendment.
Any questions about the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
And I'll yield for any questions on the bill.
Any questions on the bill?
Title sufficient to pass committee sub.
Seeing none, senators made the motion, title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we will move to Senate Bill 2841. I'll recognize Senator Polk to explain this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a good business bill for the state of Mississippi, and I'll go through it rather quickly and then answer questions. In Section 1, it names the act. In Section 2, it gives us our definitions. When you get to Section 3, this bill requires that all funds held by state agencies to be in interest-bearing accounts. It is also reasonably feasible to do so. All funds shall be included in a pooled interest-bearing account to be invested by the treasurer. The treasurer shall ensure that all agencies are meeting these requirements. Also, the treasurer may provide an exception to the funds being held in an interest-bearing account and pooled interest if the state agency justifies why they cannot accrue interest due to a restriction on monies they have within the funds. Section 4, all state agencies must report various criteria of each fund held by the agencies to DFA and the treasurer no later than September 30th, 2024. This will allow the agencies, DFA, and the treasurer to determine if the funds are collecting interest, if we need each fund, or if we could combine or close various funds, if the fund was created in legislation or by the agency internally. It also, the treasurer, with the assistance of DFA, shall review the information submitted for accuracy on September 30th and compile it into a report to the Legislative Budget Office by December 15th of this year. The report also will include their recommendation on any funds that should be closed, combined, and any legislation related to their recommendation. The full reporting all the funds will occur every 4 years following a statewide election. So the next full report would be in 2028. And the reporting will also be required each year for any new funds created by agencies. DFA may disapprove payments from the state treasury if an agency does not submit the information required. That's the summation of the bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Are there questions? Senator Williams, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Polk. This interest, will it end up in the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Norwood, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Polk.
Yes.
The the interest, some grants have specific requirements that the funds would go back to that particular grant to support that particular program. Now, are there provisions here that would allow that to happen and not that there would be a pool or go into the general fund?
The pooling only occurs because, as you know, if you have larger amounts of deposit somewhere, you get a better return on your investment.
Mhm.
So we'll be able to track all the agency funds separately, but they'll just be in one pooled account if possible.
Well, I guess I'm talking about once the interest has accrued and the funds, would those funds be portioned back to the originator of those funds, of those grant funds that?
I've just been corrected. The money does not come back to the general fund. It adds to the agency's fund that they put in there.
So
It will be to the interest back to the agency.
And the specific grant that was responsible for that interest. I mean, I understand the agency, but not just the agency. If it come from a particular grant, that grant would be, that money would be portioned out to that particular grant, not just the agency.
Yes. It's an easier way to explain it, Corbin just did. This does not transfer the money away from the agency or away from the grant. It just gets it in a pool, if possible, to be able to get the best interest rate possible on state earnings.
Okay, I mean, I understand that. But I'm saying once the interest has been accrued and collected, what's there, is it going to be credited back to that particular grant that was responsible for the interest from the beginning?
It's my understanding that those funds will go back to particular grant, agency, whatever. Nothing changes there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator Polk.
Thank you, Senator Norwood. Other questions? Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me get my simpleton head around this. If we have an agency that, say, is going out and getting sponsorships for their department, will that money also be put in a pool? And how will that interest that gains?
Well, what I was telling Corbin to tell, make sure Senator Polk knew. Let me be clear about this. In almost all cases, the funds that we have come back through the legislature for appropriation. And we do have some escalation authority within budgets for them to be able to use funds, but it's not as though agencies, or let me just say almost all, do not have the ability to go out and just say, I'm going to bring in funds and use them any way I want to. Those funds will come in. Now, it may go into a separate fund that we set up in their appropriations budget. And I think what Senator Polk was explaining to Senator Norwood a while ago is, despite the fact that you may have different funds that are used different ways, those will be pooled together to try to get the maximum return on the dollars that we can get. The whole purpose of this bill is to make sure that we're not wasting, through any fund or any agency, we're not wasting the opportunity to gain interest on the money that sits in the state accounts.
So, for instance, Arts Commission, they go out and get sponsorships for the governor's arts awards. Will all that money plus the interest go to them, or will just that money and not the interest go to them?
Well, typically, it depends on how their budget's set up, and typically it's going to go into a fund that will still be their fund, their money to be utilized. One, based on the amount of money we put in there that they can utilize, and two, for the purposes for which they can utilize it. So it just depends on each state budget. You know, some states, some agencies within the state will have funds that are specifically earmarked for certain things they do, and some are going to be for general operations, and they got the authority to go in and use it for any number of things. Now, we do have another bill that's pending, or we've actually passed it out of this committee that's on the calendar. That's part of the VCP plan that we've adopted the last few years, which has been in the appropriations budgets. And I'm probably giving you more than you want, but we're going to try to create a general law so we don't have to go and put this in the appropriation budgets every year. It just specifies the way the funds can be used for salaries in each agency. And that's more to do with the salary issue that we're trying to construct to keep the agencies honest within the SEC Square program that we've set up.
So this is mainly to deal with salaries.
No. I was using that as an example of how how agencies use, if you look at an agency's budget, those of you that have been around appropriations, there are categories of how they can spend their money. And there's authority given for how they do it. Now, typically we don't line item them, but we have line items some agencies, but they're going to have some authority within their budgets to use it for various things they can do, but that's coming through the authority that you grant in the legislature. I hope that makes sense.
It does. I just don't want to punish
We're not
a
punishing.
department that's going out and busting their tail, going out and getting sponsorships to help supplement, to make their program better. But yet we keep it and put it in a general fund or something.
Well, let me get into a deep philosophical debate. The authority that you give every agency and the legislature gives every agency is to collect funds, and typically they're kept for the operation of that agency. So there's not much that changed there. Now, the legislature also has the authority to tell an agency, because you pass the laws, and to tell the agencies, this is how we want these funds to be used. We do have funds that lapse back in the general fund, and we have some that stay within the agencies because they have to continue to use them for those programs. I think that's kind of what you're asking is, can they continue to use them for those programs? Yes, they can. I don't think there's anything that's changing here with that. It's just, this is allowing them to maximize the dollars and allowing us as a state to maximize the dollars. So no, we're not trying to suck away the money in any way. We're just trying to maximize the dollars.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator McClendon. Senator Delano.
Mr. Chairman, I think I understand what you're doing here. I want to ask a question. If an agency, do agencies use commercial banks for these deposits that you're referring to?
Some do.
Okay, so I've dealt with agencies that have had dollars that accrue to their benefit that they've had to hold. They've had to place them in multiple banks because the FDIC does not insure greater than $250,000 per depositor, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Is by requiring agencies to pool these funds and put them into a higher interest-bearing account, how do we deal with the insured limits of the FDIC?
Senator Delano, I think what you would look at is where are all the monies that are being held in Mississippi now? What are the parameters for legal responsibility there of return? And so since we have millions on deposit in different places, this bill just puts some of those funds in the same situation as those monies, so we earn the highest rate of interest we can.
But Senator Polk, I defer to you. You know more about this, and you've had to deal with these numbers with a lot of zeros on it, more so than I have. So I appreciate your answering the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there other questions? Not. Senator Polk's motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Senator Polk, 2848. I'll recognize you to explain that bill by that committee sub.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an ARPA bill, and it makes it where we will be able to not send money back to the federal government. So if you'll look at the bill, Section 1 allows us to transfer interest to the State Fiscal Recovery Fund. And also Section 2 through 5 brings forward various ARPA programs that we initiated, particularly Section 2, DEQ, Section 3, Health, which is the Rural Water Program, Section 4, the Health, which was the Hospital Sustainability Grant Program, and Section 5, the Skilled Nursing Home and Hospital Nurses Retention Loan Program. In Section 6, since the legislature will end our session in April, and the funds, ARPA funds, must be obligated by December 31st of this year, we want to ensure that all the funds are obligated and nothing is returned to the U.S. Treasury. This language is similar to what we used for the CARES Act, which swept any money that was not expended in the Unemployment Trust Fund, into the Unemployment Trust Fund. We'll be unable to allocate all of the unobligated funds to the Unemployment Trust Fund because under new guidelines from the feds, your balance in the Unemployment Trust Fund can only be what it was January 27th, 2020. Right now, our balance in the unemployment fund is $696 million. And the rule by federal law of using the January 27th, 2020 number is $706 million. So we only have about $10 million we could move to that fund. This language requires DFA to determine the amount of unobligated funds as of November 1st of this year. It also requires that any agency notify DFA if they have any unobligated funds from the passage of this act until November 1st, 2024. Any unobligated funds then will be transferred to this Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund by no later than November 5th, 2024, and will be subsequently distributed. We're still working. Now listen to this. We are still working with the staff and DFA and the ARPA subcommittee to determine the best possible place to obligate any of the funds that will be transferred November 5th to ensure that will be quickly obligated by December 31st, 2024, and not returned to the U.S. Treasury. Section 7, all ARPA funds must be obligated by December 31st of this year or returned to U.S. Treasury. Because of this, we've been reviewing all agencies that received ARPA funds to determine if they will be obligated the funds at that deadline. In doing that, we've determined that some agencies will not meet that obligation timeline, and therefore we're transferring a portion of their ARPA funds back into the main ARPA account for these funds. And that number is going to be approximately $144 million at this time of the $1.8 billion we received, which is about 8% of the total. If any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Are there questions? Senator McClendon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these are funds that have not been paid out yet?
These are funds
That have not been used?
that the agencies have not used, and we have determined that they will not be able to meet the December 31st this year deadline to obligate them.
So there's two trial judges figures on here?
I'm sorry, what?
There's two trial judges figures on here, $1.5 million and $1.5 million 89. Those are going back.
They will not be able to be spent, so they'll go back into the main fund to be re-obligated.
Trial judges with ARPA money.
Sir?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator McClendon. Other questions? Senator Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And now the 144, those are the funds that you say have been obligated or back in. So we will be re-obligating these funds before the session.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator Pope.
Thank you. And I'll reiterate something that I think is important. My hope is that we can get this done a little sooner than everything else, because we'd like this to have some eyeballs on it before we get out of here in case there's a hiccup anywhere, that we have a chance to correct it before the deadline, before we get out of session. So Any other questions? If there aren't any, I think the senator made a motion, title sufficient do pass, committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Moving to Senate Bill 2004, I'll recognize Senator McCon to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that's brought in, Senator Johnson brought this forward from the ag community. Unfortunately, right now, we have no certification out there for graders of grain. If grain is not properly graded on the market, it could bring substantially less than the amounts that are out there. Usually that involves everything from moisture content to content of other matters in there. Currently, all the warehouses that are out there have their own person inside their facility that grades it. Whether or not they have the training or not is different. This is brought in for the request of actually having state certified graders for this product so that our people can have this on the market and get the premiums that are out there. This would require zero money from the state. These certifications that are going to be going through the State Department of Ag would be paid for by, right now we've got guarantees from the commodities and the farmers themselves to actually pay for those graders and to have a certified one in every state licensed grain dealer facility or grain warehouse. The feds are going to be on board as well, but this would only be for the state that we'd be requiring it. Like I said, this would have no impact upon our budget, and there would be no monies coming out of the state.
Thank you, Senator McCon. Questions?
Title sufficient do pass, committee sub.
Motion is title sufficient do pass. Committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Bill will be reported. Next, Senate Bill 2341. This is something that came to us from Public Health. You'll recall a few years ago, we passed a bill that allows the Department of Health to provide grants to federally qualified health centers. This just extends the repealer from this year to 2026, July 1, 2026. I'll yield for questions. If there are none, Senator Polk makes a motion, title sufficient do pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2348. I'll recognize Senator Robinson to explain that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're taking up bill number 2348. This is something that the Mississippi Department of Education has asked for. The bill that you have before us is an act to amend the code to revise the state workforce investment board's list of nationally recognized industry certifications to ensure reimbursement funds only apply to certain priority sections. And to explain that a little bit, the SWIB board currently governs the list of the national certification that count for reimbursement, accountability, and the career technical education diploma endorsement. The SWIB board focuses this list solely on 5 priority workforce sectors. Those are advanced manufacturing, information technology, distribution and logistics, health science, and energy. But these 5 sectors do not represent all 16 nationally recognized clusters or K-12 secondary pathway that MDE offers to schools. Currently, MDE offers 48 unique CTE programs representing those career clusters. Not all of these program areas offer national certification, but many do. Recently, the SWIB board slated educator prep, early childhood education, and culinary arts for removal from the SWIB list effective June 2025. Over 7,000 Mississippi secondary career technical education students were impacted by this decision, and districts will no longer receive reimbursements, accountability points, or diploma endorsement credit for these certifications. The second area this bill addresses is to provide that certain grant funds may be used to increase access to qualifying industry certification or to purchase needed equipment. So, Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, this completes my presentation of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Are there questions?
I move title sufficient to pass.
Seeing none, the motion is title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator Robinson. Next is 23, well, I don't see Senator Wiggins. So I'll skip 2386. We'll go to 2682, and I'll recognize Senator DeBar to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2682 is a repealer bill. If you recall, we have the Critical Teacher Shortage Act, and it provides funding for teachers to go in the critical shortage areas. And so all this does is extend the repealer through 2027 for 3 years. I'll yield for any questions.
Are there questions?
If none, title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Bill will be reported. Next is Senate Bill 2724. I'll recognize Senator Delano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill deals with one of our student financing or financial aid programs. This is the MTAG. What this bill will do will remove the Pell exclusion from MTAG and open MTAG to thousands of lower income students. It will allow students to receive partial MTAG awards for part-time enrollment with a minimum of at least 6 hours into a program. The bill would also eliminate initial academic eligibility requirements. You would have to be admitted to a college, and if you are admitted to the college, then you would receive the eligible financial assistance. MTAG currently is awarded for $500 a year for freshmen and sophomores and $1,000 for junior and seniors. This proposal would increase the award amounts for low income that is measured from 0 to 50% of area or state area mean income to 700 or to 1,000 and 2,000 respectfully. And then from 51% to 100% of median income, it would go up to $700 for juniors or for freshmen and sophomore, $1,500 for juniors and seniors. And again, anyone over 100% of area median income would remain at the 500 and 1,000 mark as it is today. This would add additional about 37,800 students that would be eligible for this MTAG award, and that would be at an incremental cost to the state of about $31.5 million. This bill also includes something that was very important for leadership in the Senate, and that is the Mississippi Promise Award, and that would provide for assistance to fill the gap between what would be available in MTAG and other assistance programs to fill that last dollar of cost for community colleges. That would cost, again, that's for students that are already enrolled and they are already within a financial aid program. So it's not going to add any new students for eligibility, but it would have an incremental cost to the state of approximately 7.5 to a total of $10 million. This is a work in progress. This bill does have a reverse repealer in it. Again, for the purposes of an appropriations committee, we expect these combined costs to be an incremental increase annually of about $40 million. That's an explanation of the bill. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for questions.
Are there questions? Senator Hill, you recognize.
So from what I gathered that you said is the MTAG was previously designated for students whose parents could not qualify for a Pell Grant, correct?
That is correct.
So now we're opening it up to supplement Pell Grants, and the lower the income, the more money they're going to get from the state, correct?
To be able to participate or to be able to enroll in a school and have their finance or their cost for the education covered. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you don't qualify for a Pell Grant, you can't get any more money. You still stuck at 500 and 1,000, correct?
That's correct.
But if you are 50% of the median income, you can get 2,000. If you're below 50%, you can get 2,500. Is that correct? No,
it's 700 for freshman and sophomore. 50 to 100% of median income would be $750. If you're 0 to 50, it would be 1,000. And again, those are all numbers that we're working.
I may be looking at the wrong bill, but I'm looking on line 96, where it's talking about for juniors and senior students attending state institutions of higher learning for at or below 50% of the median income for a family of four, the award shall not exceed $2,000. And then and I see where you have the between 51 and 99% of the median income. The award shall not exceed $1,500 for juniors and seniors and $750 for freshmen and sophomores.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So I guess, and the other question, I'm looking back at the old code. The old code used to have some minimum requirements in here for ACT, unless it was a vocational or technical program. So we're removing any ACT requirements.
Well, Madam Chair, there's already requirements to enter into colleges or universities or community colleges. And that became, if I remember this correctly from the explanation that we received, it's more of this that's in the bill is more of a duplicative process for especially high school counselors to have to demonstrate that and to show it when you have to have those minimum standards to be enrolled in the college itself. So it would not, this would help those people that are trying to get to college that needed assistance, but had a little bit, it gave them a little more flexibility and reduced the burden on the local school districts.
And they have to take 6 hours in a university to be able to qualify. Was it previously 12 hours or what was the previous?
It was either 12 or 15. It was something to do. That's part of the confusion as well, because the Fed said that you had to be at 15, and I think the state was a minimum of 12. But the purpose of this is to say, and some of these changes is to recognize that there are students that want to get and continue their courses and coursework, but they have to work in the workplace at the same time. So this allows them to be a part-time student and not have that tuition assistance stripped from them just because they're forced to work at the same time.
Right, but some of these kids that come from middle-class incomes, they're only going to be able to get $1,000 still. So, you know, I guess it's okay if they have to take out a loan for more money, because I can tell you, I came from a middle-class family. My family couldn't afford to send me to college. I had to get loans.
Yes, ma'am, I'm in the same boat, and so are my kids today.
Well, I would hope that we would consider that as well, as because the goal is for people that are working to be able to go to college. I think that's the goal.
Well,
They want to go to college.
This is a step in the right direction. We're still way under SEC averages or Southeastern averages for tuition assistance, but this is a step in the right direction.
So does this do anything with MESG?
No, it does not impact it.
This does not impact MESG. Thank
That's
you.
correct.
There are other questions?
Motion be titled sufficient due pass committee sub.
Motion is titled sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator. Next is Senate Bill 2728, and I'll recognize Senator Delano again.
Again, this is a committee sub that came from college and universities, and I don't think I see my chairman in here right now. This is for a lease for University of Mississippi for a site that's on their campus. The lease authorizes it to not to exceed 30 years. The bill authorizes the lease not to exceed 30 years. IHL has to has authorized the universities to act on their behalf to negotiate the terms of the lease. And the revenue that is generated from this project would go to a special fund for the use and the benefit of the university. That's an explanation of the bill. I'll yield for any questions.
Are there questions? Senator McClendon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Delano, never mind, I withdraw my question.
Thank you, Senator McClendon. Other questions? Seeing
Motion would be
none,
titled sufficient due pass committee sub.
motion titled sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next, Senator Delano will explain 2729.
2729 is the rural dentist or the rural physician and dentist scholarship program. This is purely a technical bill. The way that I understand it, it's been proposed or that it's been discussed to me is that there's not a significant dollar amount change with this. It does remove the requirements that students have to be from a rural area of the state It removes that requirements. They would still have to work in an area that is considered rural. It creates some additional reporting requirements for the commission, and it provides some technical changes for the naming of the school. In the bill today, or in the law today, it says Mississippi Dental School, and it needs to be changed to the University of Mississippi School of Dentistry, since the Mississippi Dental School does not actually exist. And I believe that is an explanation of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Delano. Are there questions? Seeing
Ooh,
none. Yes.
And
we need
Mr.
to
Chairman,
add-
I believe we have I need to make an amendment to this that would add a reverse repealer to it.
Okay. You've heard the motion is to add a reverse repealer. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Senator Delano.
And
you're
this would be
recognized.
referred back to college and universities, correct?
Yes, correct.
Upon passage of title sufficient do pass.
Motion title.
Committee
sufficient
sub.
Pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, you'll see a standalone bill that passed education earlier. It's Senate Bill 2715. I'll recognize Senator DeBar to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2715 is a bill regarding the Mississippi University for Women. Initially began it also concerns the Math and Science School located on the university for appropriations purposes. At this point in time, we don't anticipate any increase in appropriation requests. So I'll go ahead and explain the bill regarding that. So I'm going to do some reading out of here because it has legislative intent. Ultimately, what this does is it transfers the assets of the W to Mississippi State University, and that Mississippi State University, beginning in July of this year, shall develop a plan on transferring, IHL will develop a plan to transfer assets and ownership of property to Mississippi State University. And the reason we're doing that is the W, let me say this, the W will now be known, if this becomes law, that will be the W at Mississippi State University. The intent of the transfer is to honor the legacy of the W and to ensure the W at Mississippi State University shall become a successful regional university located in the city of Columbus, and that both the campus at Mississippi State University and the W at Mississippi State University can benefit from their mutual collaboration. So what that means is we all know about MSMS, at least those of you on the Education Committee, we've studied it at length. They have made a request of approximately $90 million to upgrade their dorms and some administrative buildings. The W has made requests to upgrade their nursing buildings. They put out great teachers, culinary arts students. So we see this as a way to increase the viability of the W, increase the viability of the MSMS students, and just allow for collaboration to not only increase the stability and security of maintaining a university in Columbus. And so as we work forward through this, if there's any changes to it as far as appropriations wise, next year, I imagine there will be a request for an appropriation on MSMS because of the dorms matters. And so by the session of next year, the Department of Education has to report what their plan of action is regarding that school, how we're going to go forward. We are not moving MSMS. It will stay at Columbus, and we'll await word from the department. So that's the explanation, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield for any questions.
Thank you, Senator DeBar. Are there questions?
There are none. Title sufficient due pass committee sub.
Seeing none, the motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That bill will be reported. We've got one final bill. Senator Wiggins is not here, so I'll try to explain this one briefly to keep it alive. This bill is going back to 2386 on the large calendar agenda items that you have. And this is appointed counsel for indigent defense. And this is compensation for counsel that For representation in circuit court, it raises the current top amount for counsel from $1,000 to $5,000. Actually, I was surprised when I heard this, that some of the figures were so low. And that's whether on appeal or originating in that court. If the case is not appealed or doesn't originate in the court of record, the maximum compensation shall increase from $200 to $1,000 for representation in Chantry County or circuit. In capital cases where you have two attorneys being appointed, and compensation would be increased from $2,000, again, hard to fathom, to $15,000. If the case is appealed to the Supreme Court, the compensation is not to exceed an increased amount from $1,000 to $5,000. Obviously, the judges still have the authority to determine the amounts, but these are just maximum amounts. And then municipal cases, maximum compensation would go from $200 to $1,000 maximum. That's an explanation of the bill. I will yield for questions. Senator Norwood, you recognize.
Now, Mr. Chairman, is this authority or is this money?
This is authority. This is, gives them, I mean, it will ultimately cost money, but it gives them the authority to pay in the courts to be able to request that amount, not request, but to order that amount be paid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Delano.
Mr. Chairman, is this what they refer to as a lawyer bill?
Well, you might refer to it as that. You might refer to it as a indigent defense bill. And again,
Touche. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was, frankly, I was not aware of that. I don't do criminal work, but I was very surprised at how low the maximums were for this type of work. So if there are no other questions, I think Senator McClendon has a question.
Mr. Chairman, do we know the total number that this would be if everyone raised to the maximum?
I do not at this point, but I will inquire about that. Yeah, Corbin says they are working on that now. So maybe by the time we get to the floor, I will ask Senator Wiggins to hold this bill, and I think he would do that until we have a better figure there. And certainly you can ask him that question when he gets to the floor.
They're going to get paid for one, this is per case?
Yes.
So they're going to get paid more per case than school board members all over the state.
Well, we raised school board members last year to, I think, from $2,500 to $4,000 max, or actually 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, if I remember correctly, were the three, depending on the size of your school district.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator McClendon. Motion, Senator Polk, as title official do pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion is rise and report. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.